Hi guys, and welcome back to Coffee Corner. My name is Jarena, and we're so glad to have you back today. I'm very happy that at least my brain, it's starting to get regular, and I'm starting to maybe hit the stride with this YouTube thing, so hopefully we can keep doing that. I'm actually, since I'm filming a little bit later in the day, I'm actually on my second cup of coffee. Hopefully my last. But it's my Mrs. cup, so it actually is backwards on the camera. But yeah. Oh well. So this is something that I got as a present for our wedding, and I love it. I love the I don't know about you, but like I'm in love with these camper style mugs. I just absolutely love them. This one's a little bit heavier than I'm used to. I have one that's a little bit lighter. I sort of like that one better, but overall, I'm a little bit biased. I really like this mug. So today we're just drinking French vanilla. Not my absolute favorite, but it's pretty good. So that's what I'm drinking today. I'm finishing off the pot that I started this morning. But talking about pots, I recently got a French press, so if I haven't used it yet, so if you guys have like opinions about the French press, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, let me know. I'm excited to use it, but I haven't gotten around to using it quite yet because I have a pot and it's just so much easier to, use the coffee pot. But comment below, let me know what you guys think about a French press, and I'll have to try it one of these days, sometime soon. We'll see. Soon's a relative word, but we are so glad to have you guys back today, and I'm eager to share something that I actually learned this morning in my devotions. And I don't know, it's one of those things, I know I've mentioned this before, where you read a passage, something sort of different sticks out to you, something you've never realized, and that's what I'm doing, or that's what happened to me this morning. I'm reading through the Gospels. It's called basically a chronological reading, so I'm using this book, Baker's Harmony of the Gospels. It's not super good, you can't really see it, but it's not super good setup, but it gets the job done. It has all of the Gospels laid side by side so that you're reading the same account in all four Gospels, if that's applicable. So I really like it, and it gives you a little bit of a different perspective on how each of the authors was led to write each account. And it is interesting that some passages have a little bit more detail where others just give you a little more general outline of what happened. And I was reading about the baptism of Jesus today. It's not a super, that's not something that you hear a lot about, just because, actually I don't know why you don't hear a lot about, but overall you don't. So I was reading through, and today it had the passages from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John doesn't start out with this, but Matthew is a little bit more detailed than Mark or Luke. Where Mark and Luke just says Jesus came, John baptized them, and then God says, "This is my beloved Son that I'm well pleased." Matthew includes a little bit more of a conversation that goes on between John and Jesus. And I'm just going to read it really quick because it's only 2 verses. So Matthew 3:14 says, "But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of thee, and thou comest to me? And Jesus answered and said unto him, Suffer it now be so now, for thus it became us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he suffered him." So basically Jesus is coming to John, and John says, "Why are you asking me to baptize you? You should be baptizing me. You're the Son of God. You're the Christ. You're the Messiah." And Jesus is like, "Well, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. We'll fulfill all righteousness." And wow, that's actually sort of relatable. I sort of relate with John. John is saying here, why do you want me to do it? And I just, you feel your own inadequacies, you see your failures. John wasn't perfect. This is the same John the Baptist that in chapter 11 of Matthew, after he'd been put in prison, sends some of his disciples to ask Jesus, are you the Christ? Are you the person that I thought you were? Because of his situation, there was a little bit of doubt that had crept into John's mind. So he was far from perfect. I think sometimes we put all these Bible characters on these pedestals of they were great men of God, and they were great men of God, but they weren't without failing, and they weren't without, inadequacies. They weren't perfect by any means. And John's question here really rings true, and actually sort of reminds me back to the Moses situation, where Moses is being challenged by God through the burning bush to go back to Egypt. And Moses is like, no, I can't do that. Like, you asked the wrong guy. Don't ask me. And I think John isn't necessarily here trying to find an excuse not to baptize Jesus, but he just realizes, I'm far from perfect. Like, you should be doing this to me, not the other way around. And I think it's very telling. And what I wrote today was Jesus was never concerned about status or perfection. So John was far from perfect. He had the status of this, like, sort of, crazy wilderness preacher. But Jesus wasn't concerned about that. John was God's chosen instrument, and that was enough. It didn't matter about his status. It didn't matter about, how good he was necessarily. God chose him to baptize Christ. And that's all that mattered. It didn't matter if he had shortcomings. It didn't matter whether he, had failings or times of doubt. God's choosing was enough. And it's the same way for us. His choosing is enough, and it's not up to us. Whether you find yourself as a student, you find yourself working, a Midland type job, or even a job you love, you just have some down days, or you're a mom or a grandma, or whatever stage of life you're in, God's called you to that stage of life. And we're going to have days where we fail, and we're going to have days where we feel less than adequate. But God has chosen us for where we're at right now in life. And it doesn't matter about our status or how important other people see us as, or, how good we are, or if we have our bad days, or if we have our down days. God has chosen us for where we're at, and that is truly enough. We don't have to find it within ourselves to be enough within ourselves. Christ is enough, and that's all that matters. John wasn't anything special. Not in and of himself. He was sort of a crazy back wilderness prophet and preacher. And yet God chose this man to basically start out his ministry, because after his baptism, he goes and he starts his ministry. And it wasn't any merit necessarily of John's that God chose him to, start the ministry of Christ. And it's through no merit of our own that we've been placed in whatever special place that we've been, whether it's a student or a wife or a mother or a single lady. They're special, but they're not special because of us. They're special because God has chosen to put us there. And for me, that is such a relief to know that God's enough. I don't have to constantly be trying to be perfect or trying to reach a certain level or reach a certain status. Yes, I want to be growing in Christ. I want to be better in life. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. God is adequate, and his choosing is adequate in my life. So, I don't know. It's just something new, something different that I learned today. And I hope this is an encouragement to you that, you're not enough, but God is, and he's placed you where you're at, and he will be enough for you. And I just hope that can be an encouragement to wherever you're at. If you're not in a spot where you're struggling, who knows, maybe later on this will be an encouragement to you when you feel stuck or something. So I'm so glad you guys joined us for Coffee Corner, Coffee in Christ. If you haven't subscribed, I would encourage you to. I really look forward to sharing these devotionals on a weekly basis. And I hope that they are going to be an encouragement and a challenge to you guys. So if you haven't subscribed, please do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on our next video. We'll see you then. Bye.